Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a video for you about what Advanced Warfare did wrong, and believe it or not, it's not going to be a 7-hour video. Going to be a little bit longer than usual, of course, but not quite that long because I'm going to keep it mostly on big picture topics, gameplay elements that went wrong, major bugs, major oversights, and not each and every single little minute detail or glitch or little thing that happened. Also, the gameplay you're seeing here is a pretty good example of one of those things. I'm playing Momentum, and the other team, after about a minute into this gameplay, is all going to swap to where every single one of them has an MDL as a secondary, double grenades, overkill, or maybe like a Moz or some kind of launcher, or just something super annoying, noob tubes on the guns, and it is going to be Grenade City. We're going to be playing Grenade Grenade, Grenade of Grenade 4, and everything is going to explode. It got me really annoyed, really irritated, and in just the perfect mood to make this video. So we'll start off with number 1, and I think this is actually the biggest flaw in AW more than any other flaw, and that's that Pick 13 is inherently inferior to Pick 10. Pick 10 from Black Ops 2, and therefore in Black Ops 3, is going to be a much better system than Pick 13, even though it doesn't seem that way. You would think that Pick 13 would be cool, you've got 13 options instead of 10. Unfortunately, what ended up happening is everybody realized that perks are just more valuable than kill streaks because perks are always on, or extra gun attachments, or extra wild cards and extra grenades. Those are inherently more valuable than kill streaks, which you may or may not earn, and not all of them were even really that valuable, which we'll get to later on. But most people didn't run many kill streaks. If any, a lot of people just kind of run UAV or care package or something like that, and less kill streaks in Call of Duty means less fun. One of the core tenets of Call of Duty, if Call of Duty were religion, it would be thou shalt get thy kill streaks. That's what people do in this game. You try to get your big, crazy, stupid, fun, overpowered kill streaks by killing a bunch of people in a row, and that's what brings you back to the game. That's where the big moments come from. But nobody ran them in AW, and there weren't many kill streaks going on. It was kind of refreshing in a way to not being blown up by kill streaks all the time, but then it was also kind of boring when you don't get to blow people up with your kill streaks, and I think it inherently made the game less fun, and even though it was an idea that looked good on paper, it did not pan out very well for the game. Speaking of kill streaks, that was another big problem with this game, maybe the number 2 problem, is that kill streaks were rarely worth the points. They just weren't worth going for in most cases, which is why people didn't run them, and they were rarely worth the points when upgraded. The upgrade points were really high, the kill streaks were hard to get anyway, they weren't that powerful, so to make the kill streaks cool, all the fun stuff on the kill streaks, all the extra missiles, all the nano swarms, all the triple lasers, all the things that would really make the kill streaks unique, and I think that was kind of a cool idea, is that you could customize your streaks and make them do slightly different things and, you know, add something there, but it made them not even worth going for. It made them so hard to get, it just completely wasn't worth it. I think the only time I've ever gotten an upgraded kill streak in Advanced Warfare, because they weren't worth going for, mind you, was probably out of a care package, and I think that a lot of other people were the same way. I mean, not many people really would put the tri-lasers on their Vulcan because it just wasn't worth the extra points because it was hard enough to get as is, and when you did get them, they were just kind of weak in this game overall. I mean, of course, some were really strong. The Paladin was really strong. I think the Vulcan was fun, even though it wasn't super powerful. Missile strikes were a little bit boring, but some of the ones that could have been really, really cool, like the Goliath, which was a giant mech, was just so incredibly weak. Why is the Goliath weaker than a Juggernaut from older Call of Duty games? It doesn't make sense, but it was never worth calling in when it's slow and people just slam you. I mean, the gun took like 2 or 3 shots to kill anyway, so it was just in no way fun, and I think that's number 1 and number 2 problems with this game was kill streaks. Nobody ran them because they weren't worth the points, and they all just took extra perks, and it became a pure gunplay version of Call of Duty. It was like maybe like playing bare bones on older CODs, but without the kill streaks entirely. Still on the streak train, I think the support streaks are by far the most viable, really the only ones, because you're guaranteed to get them, and you can upgrade them 3 times and still keep them support streaks, and I know I run it in this gameplay. I've done this all year long, and most other people have. You can get some god tier UAVs that are also a counter UAV and also show people's position through walls or arrows, kind of like a VSAT and stuff like that, and it's on support. You're just going to get it by default, or care package, or sentry gun support, and that's all that people ran, and they ended up just getting spammed all the time, and it got kind of annoying to be in, you know, UAV City. Moving on, let's talk about gun balance. I think a lot of you are going to agree with me when I say that some guns in this game have just always been useless. I think Sledgehammer has done a fantastic job at keeping overpowered stuff at bay to keep us from just getting nuked or having one god tier gun, but by the same hand, they've kept a whole lot of other guns very, very useless, at least the base versions without the variants, and even some of them with the variants are still very, very worthless. For example, the EPM3, completely, totally worthless. Even though it got buffed a couple of times, it's still not even remotely useful. The Mark 14 is completely worthless and underpowered, way less way less practical than any of the other assault rifles. Like, yeah, it's better now that you can kill with 2 headshots, but in a game that's crazy and fast, that's in no way practical. SN6 has always been very weak. AMR9 I thought was okay, but it's not really a strong gun. It's definitely not a top tier gun. And most of the pistols for the majority of the game have been very weak. They've been buffed recently, so they're a little more practical, but even still, they're not like super awesome, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are tons and tons and tons of guns that just really aren't that good or competitive. And again, there's not a whole lot of super OP guns. There are some in the variants, but but some of them just get completely ignored. Some of them just get no love. Like, we've been needing an SN6 buff forever, and that gun is just not getting any love. The same thing with the Mark 14 and all those kind of guns. And let's move on to talk about variants. So the balancing on the variants was overall a little better than I expected, but some of the variants are very, very strong, like the ARX Hole Puncher here, or the IMR Impact, or the Obsidian Steed, or the Speakeasy. These are really, really strong, and they really outclass the base variant. As well, they should, because they're professional or elite. A lot of mixed feelings with that, and it does show up. Like, I do guns, so I know the stats, I know the numbers, and I like to say, oh, it's not that bad, but sometimes it just does kind of piss me off when I get one bursted from across the map with a hole puncher, or if I just get nuked with a Speakeasy or something. It's kind of annoying. And by the same token, while some of these are strong, some of the variants are really, really, really useless. This is more often a problem when the base variant isn't really strong, but Mark 14 has some bad variants. The Lynx has a ton of useless variants. A lot of shotgun variants aren't super useful. SN6 variants are all kind of fluky for the most part. Matter of fact, I'm working on an in-depth episode, a really joking, like, silly one about useless variants. Some of them just weren't really worth having. Like, so some of them were just like almost pure negative. Like, oh great, so I get less damage and less fire rate, but I can aim down sights a little faster. Woo boy, can't wait to use that gun out. Not really fun right there. And now that the explosions are really, really picking up in this gameplay, it's a very good time to segment into the fact that the stun and explosion shake was way too much in this game. Like I said early on, we're playing grenade, grenade, grenade of grenade 400 because everything blows up all the time. This was a thing that happened all the time in the pro scene. I think they had to run hardwired so that they didn't get shaken by stuns all the time. You almost never run into stuns in pub matches, just the regular grenades. But the screen shook, there was dust everywhere, it went red, dark red. It was just a very grenade-oriented gameplay, and it got really annoying. And I'm going to quote a friend of mine here, Accepted T-Mac. He was an Army veteran in Afghanistan, and he said, jokingly mind you, that the grenades in Advanced Warfare gave him a bigger headache than actual IEDs. Of course, that wasn't true, but he was pointing out the fact that they were really, really over-the-top frustrating, and I do think that was a problem with this game as well. I'm going to take a little turn to the left. We're going to shift gears again and move out of the major gameplay elements and move more into a slightly detail-oriented thing. And one of the ones that I would like to point out that not everybody knows about or even remembers at this point is that Advanced Warfare was Bug City on launch. The first 3-4 weeks, maybe even a little bit more than a month, bugs all over the place. Launch was really, really rough on this game, a lot rougher than I'd hoped for, especially because this was the first, 3-year dev cycle game. Tons and tons of bugs. I mean, they were worse on last gen too, but we had all sorts of camo glitches, we had weird lag problems, matchmaking problems. Let's see, what are the other bugs that we had? We had out-of-map bugs, we had a couple of like reloading problems, and again, all of these were magnified like tenfold on last gen. Last gen was just a big, big buggy mess, and it was really bad for about, I really want at least 3 weeks. It took a long time. It eventually all did get patched and fixed, but that was during the holiday season. That was right after launch, right up until about Christmas. And a lot of the people that got this game early, the hardcore fans, their first experience of it wasn't, of course, this post-patch gloriousness, but of all those frustrating bugs, and that really soured a lot of people and turned them off on Advanced Warfare, which, again, kudos to Treyarch for doing the beta. I know a lot of people complained about their bugs, and there was a lot of bugs and a lot of frustrations in the beta, but it's much better to get that kind of stuff out of the way first. We're going to talk about some of the game modes here, or one game mode in particular. I thought the game modes overall were pretty good, with the exception of Ranked Play. Ranked Play should have been an awesome game mode. I thought Ranked Play was a good name. The idea, we weren't entirely stealing from Treyarch's League Play. It was really cool. I played it at launch. It was really good. But over time, it really soured on me because there were some serious problems with Ranked Play that made it totally useless as a game mode. for some reason, in ranked play of all modes, there was almost no skill-based matchmaking. You would expect ranked play to have the strictest, most serious of all skill-based matchmaking or elo-based matchmaking or rank-based matchmaking that you could have, but it felt like there was almost none. I could go in there with a team of like platinum or diamond or I don't even know what, like gold players and get matched up against a team of iron and bronze like it was nothing. And the crazy thing is, if I beat this team of bronze players, I got the same amount of points as beating a team of platinum players. So it was like a bronze stomping heaven in ranked play, and there was no skill-based matchmaking, which didn't make sense. You'd think you could only match like one tier above or below, but that's not how it worked at all. And what's even crazier is that the ranks were based on points. I thought the ranks, again, like League or something, would be kind of like an elo system, or kind of like Treyarch's League play, which had, it wasn't an elo system, but they had their own sort of ranking system, and you usually matched up pretty close. This one really wasn't. It was all about beating people, not losing, and acquiring the most amount of points. And as far as I'm aware, the way to get to like their master level, their top tier level, was to just be in the certain like top 1% of all points or whatever, which meant you basically just grinded out ranked play all day. And I think that was a terrible way to run that. It wasn't very intuitive. It didn't, you know, reward me for leveling up. It was just like a big grind, which was in no way fun. And another thing, it didn't separate the full teams from the solo players. So if you went in as a solo player, you were going to get crapped on by a full team. Pretty much guaranteed. It was going to be really, really rough. There was no mercenary ranked play, and there was also a big issue with people quitting, and for the longest time there were no fixes for people. I think it took, honestly think it took like 2 or 3 months, maybe even more, to get punishments for quitting out of ranked play, which absolutely should not have been that way. There should have been immediate punishment, even like a little 5-minute suspension, but you could quit out of ranked play just like whatever and go right back in like instantly, and it made no difference. So that wasn't very good. And variants were allowed because ranked play ultimately wasn't running off of MLG or UMG rules. That's something, again, we're giving all the props to Treyarch here. That's kind of like at the end of the Call of Duty cycle. If you want easy brownie points, you just slam on the current COD game and say good things about the next one. We're going to talk about Black Ops 2. Treyarch tried pretty hard and more or less kept League play up to date with the MLG rule set. Ranked play never really did. Always allowed variants, always had like momentum and stuff, which I like momentum, and you can play it competitively, but it just wasn't part of the competitive Call of Duty game at the time. So that game mode was just a big fail. Very few people played it. I didn't play it maybe after the first couple weeks to month of launch. It just was in no way fun for me. In the perk category, I think Blast Suppressor was a huge crutch perk. This was something that I believe I mentioned in my very first playthrough or test play of Advanced Warfare in Cologne in Germany, is I noticed that if you weren't running Blast Suppressor, every time you used your new movement abilities, it would ping the map, this little red blip that would show up, and I ran Blast Suppressor on every class. I have it on every class. Now it was a huge crutch perk, because otherwise, if you want to be successful in this game, you have to use your movements a lot with most weapons, which means you're pretty much constantly pinging the map and letting people know where you are. In a mode like this, in Team Deathmatch, it's savage. You'll just die instantly. You know, objective mode's a little crazier, but that was a big problem. Between that and toughness, we tied up perk 3 and one of those wild cards, which again took away from the kill streaks, and made the class, made your overall class builds a lot less, I don't know, unique, not a lot of variety going on there. And another thing in the perk category, another complaint, is that Gung Ho always had a lot of bugs associated with it. Gung Ho had a weird animation, Gung Ho made you aim down sights slower, Gung Ho made your shotgun spread worse. Gung Ho was not useful, or it actually hurt you on a lot of weapons with the exception of the akimbos. Like if you wanted to run akimbo guns, Gung Ho was fine. If you didn't run akimbo, Gung Ho would hurt you in a lot of ways, and it was really strange to have a perk that was only good for one very specific class setup of weapons. I guess maybe if we were like in a different era, we could say it was unique, but here it just felt kind of wasted. Like it could have been so much more. As for the movement, I had the movement in my AW Good Things video that I did a couple months back, which again I haven't kept. I've been doing a lot of traveling. I did that one in Singapore. But the movement I liked, but there were some problems with it. I think that it was too vertical, if you think about it. I mean, it's a 16:9 screen. You have a lot more going on your sides than you do up and down. And the human eyes is something they talked about at Treyarch in the little dev thing I had to sit through, is that the human eye typically looks left and right for threats and not up and down. So having a lot of up and down movement in games is kind of unnatural. People don't take to it well. They don't look for it quite the same. They don't often adapt as fast as you would kind of expect. And AW had a lot of verticality. I was comfortable with it at first, but once players got smarter, once we knew what we were going on, it got more and more and more. And part of it that played into it is that the exo thrust, or boost or whatever, while really cool, you could just kind of 0 to 100 it. There wasn't a whole lot of acceleration. There wasn't a whole lot of holding back. You just like double tap your jump button and boom, you're just going to go straight up in the air. So what you would have is a lot of people just jumping straight up to avoid gunfire and kind of trying to land right next to their enemies or boosting around them and past them. And it wasn't so much is it a brilliant planned, skillful move, is that everybody knew that in a first-person game, once you get within a certain distance, it's hard to turn around fast enough on console or react. It kind of falls apart. So we were just kind of boosting past each other, trying to screw up the other player and make it feel goofy enough that he can't turn fast enough, which I don't think was a very good gameplay mechanic. It could have been great, maybe with less verticality, toned back a little bit. I still think it was good overall. I like verticality. I just know that not everybody else does, and I know why there were problems with it in first-person shooters. Another thing, PC matchmaking has been broken for a long time. The PC guys have been saying this since day one, and I feel like a bad guy because I told a whole lot of people that I don't see any problems with it, that maybe there's not a lot of people online, maybe this, maybe that. But over time, it really finally occurred to me that something is seriously wrong with PC matchmaking, even to this day. And it's not that there aren't a whole lot of people on it, which of course there aren't a whole lot of people on it. But even with a lot of people on it, it has a very hard time getting you a match. It seems like if you have a player population of 10,000, the people that you can actually match with might be like 50 or 100. So many PC players will get online, and there'll be like 5,000 people online or whatever, and they cannot get a match in any playlist at all. Any playlist, any settings, anything, no matches. And like, okay, so we got 5,000 people online, where are they? Why can't I play with them? That was a problem. A lot of people blame skill-based matchmaking for this one, and I still believe that it's very unlikely to be the culprit for this, but I do think skill-based matchmaking is a bad thing, not in what it does, but that the community didn't want it. Once the community found out about it, they were very, very vocal about skill-based matchmaking. They believed, regardless of what I said or what anybody else said, that it was a problem, it was a devil, it was a Satan, it had to go, we hated it, and it was like a 98% hate on skill-based matchmaking. You know, Sledgehammer never really addressed it very properly. We never got like a hard answer on it. I think it was kind of like, if we don't talk about it, less people will know about it and less people will complain. But the core of the community wanted it gone one way or the other, and that never happened. It just kind of like, meh, you guys are wrong, we're right. And again, I don't think it would have made too big of a difference, but it would have been really easy just to change that, just to see what happens. You could just... I don't know, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I just kind of felt like that could have been handled better. And those are the things that I didn't like about Advanced Warfare. Some of you might have a longer list, some of you might have other things going on. That's just for me personally. I would like to say that this was not intended as a hate video or a slam Sledgehammer or a bash on the old COD game to get new brownie points because the next game's coming out. But I did a video called What Advanced Warfare Did Right a couple months ago, and I said I might do one about what AW did wrong. Now I'm back, finally caught up with videos after E3, after traveling, after all this kind of stuff, and I had time to do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.
Drifter fucking fanboy, get out of here.